The Black Death, 1347. The year the world went silent. It didn't begin with screaming, it began with emptiness. Markets stayed closed, fields were left untouched, roads became quiet. At first, people thought it was just bad luck, a poor season, a temporary problem. The year the world went silent. Then they understood something was missing. People. Everything was still there, but no one was left to use it. Houses still stood. Shops were still open. Churches were still waiting. But the voices were gone. Every system that kept medieval Europe alive started breaking. The plague didn't arrive like a single disaster. Food. Chain reaction. The first thing the plague killed wasn't people, it was food. When farmers died, the land didn't stop existing. Crops still grew. Animals still reproduced. But there was no one left to manage them. No one to plant. No one to harvest. No one to store. Grain rotted in open fields. Mills stopped turning because the millers were gone. Cities began starving, not because food disappeared, but because the human system that moved food had collapsed. Markets became silent spaces filled with waiting. The plague didn't just shorten lives, it broke the sense of time. Before the Black Death, life was predictable. People planned in seasons, planting, harvesting, inheriting. Years felt stable. The future felt guaranteed. Most people expected to grow old in the same place they were born. After the plague, nobody planned anything. People stopped thinking in years. They started thinking in days, sometimes even in hours. And when a society loses faith in the future, it stops building it. Power. When rulers die faster than laws, power becomes meaningless. Kings lost armies. Nobles lost workers. Governments lost structure. Entire families that had ruled for centuries disappeared in a single season. Inheritance systems collapsed. Land changed hands randomly. Authority became unstable. Power was no longer inherited. It was accidental. The plague didn't create revolution. It created vacancy. And empty power is the most dangerous kind. Religion. The church survived wars, but it wasn't designed to survive silence. When priests died, no one replaced them. When prayers failed, no explanations followed. When monasteries vanished, there was no theology for it. People prayed harder. Nothing changed. They confessed more. The church could describe sin. It could not explain randomness. And randomness shattered belief more effectively than any rebellion ever could. Trust. The plague turned every human into a possible threat. Friends avoided friends. Parents avoided children. Strangers became invisible. People crossed the street to avoid contact. Locked doors at night. Refused to touch the sick. Not because they were cruel, but because survival required suspicion. The plague replaced community with distance. And once trust disappears, society becomes a collection of individuals pretending to be a civilization. Memory. The plague didn't just kill people, it deleted entire histories. Villages disappeared without records. Family names ended forever. Local traditions vanished with the last person who remembered them. No graves, no monuments, no witnesses, just gaps in history. The Black Death created silence where stories should have been. And silence is permanent. Medicine. The plague didn't just expose the weakness of the body, it exposed the weakness of human knowledge. Doctors were powerless. They wore long robes and leather masks. They carried herbs, oils, and charms. They studied ancient texts written centuries earlier. None of it worked. They believed disease came from poisoned air, from bad smells, from planetary alignment. So they burned incense in the streets. They recommended bloodletting. They told people not to bathe. Every treatment failed. Medicine was not science yet. It was ritual. The body as a system. The plague forced humans to confront their own biology. Before the Black Death, the body was seen as spiritual. Pain had meaning. Illness had moral purpose. Suffering was connected to sin. After the plague, the body became mechanical. People began observing symptoms, comparing cases, noticing patterns. Who survived? Who didn't? How long it took? What happened first? They started paying attention to the physical process of dying, to breathing, to fever, to bleeding. Non-graphic. This was the beginning of biological thinking. And once that idea existed, modern medicine became inevitable. Economy. Death didn't just reduce the population, it rewired the economy. With half the workforce gone, everything became expensive. Food, labor, services. But wages increased. For the first time in history, workers had leverage. If a lord treated peasants badly, they left. Labor became valuable. Human life gained economic power. The rigid medieval hierarchy began dissolving. The plague created capitalism without anyone planning it. Fear as culture. The plague created the first culture built on invisible threat. People learned to fear air, touch, crowds, strangers. Biological danger became permanent. This mindset never disappeared. It became quarantine, public health, isolation, surveillance, medical borders. But it also changed behavior on a deeper level. People stopped assuming safety. They began assuming risk. Every interaction became a calculation. Modern society is structured around the idea that catastrophe is always possible. That idea was born in the plague. The final transformation. When the plague ended, the world didn't recover. It rebooted. The old systems were gone. The old hierarchies were broken. The old certainties were useless. People rebuilt, but not on the same foundations. Work meant something different. Authority meant something different. Life meant something different. Human beings became more valuable than land, more valuable than gold, more valuable than titles. Too many empty houses, too many abandoned farms. Workers could demand wages. Servants could leave their masters. Farmers could choose where to live. The medieval world didn't evolve. It crashed. What emerged was not a continuation. It was a replacement. The plague didn't just end an era. It forced humanity to start again. The aftermath. The greatest change after the Black Death was psychological. Survivors no longer believed in permanence. They believed in probability. Life was fragile. Systems were temporary. Safety was conditional. So humans adapted. They became planners, observers, record keepers. They stopped trusting destiny. They started tracking reality. This is where the modern mind begins. Not with invention, not with technology, but with trauma. Alertness is the foundation of every modern system. Final closing. The Black Death wasn't a disaster inside history, it was a reset of history. It didn't just reduce population. It removed structures, erased timelines, collapsed meaning. It proved that civilizations are not permanent. They are temporary agreements with reality. And reality can cancel them at any time. The plague didn't end the medieval world. It revealed how fragile every world really is.